So this is your third day, right? Okay. Hope everyone is enjoying the session from the first day. And we still have another, how many days? Another 2 days. Okay, so this is in the middle of the program. Okay, without further ado, everyone, I would like to invite Professor Jatna Supriyatna to the podium, please, Professor. Okay, I will read you the not brief one. It's 2 pages long, so but I'm not going to read everything. So, Prof. Jatna had his master's and doctoral programs at the University of New Mexico, the United States of America in 1986 and 1991 in biological anthropology, followed by postdoctoral research at the Center for Environmental Research and Conservation from Columbia University. And then he's a researcher, observer, and activist for the environment and conservation, starting as a researcher at the Indonesian Institute of Science, and then becoming a lecturer and professor at the Universitas Indonesia. He founded the Climate Change Research Center at the Universitas Indonesia in 2010. A lot of position in the government and also in the NGO, and then also a lot of awards. I will mention some. He received a lifetime achievement from Conservation International in Biodiversity Conservation. And in September 2023, he received the Boscha Medal from the Leiden, Delft, and Erasmus Universities Alliance, Netherlands. And this is interesting. The research result by World Conservation Union, IUCN SSG, Primate Specialist Group members immortalized his name for a new tarsier primate species from Gorontalo, North Sulawesi. Right, Professor? So you have... Okay, Tarsius supriyatnae, they call it, right, okay, a very specific species. His name is also enriched and in the species name of the flying gecko from the Togian Island, Central Sulawesi, with the name Draco supriyatnae. And by Indonesian researchers during a survey in the West Bali National Park, a new type of gecko was found called the Bali gecko, or Cyrtodactylus jatnae. Is it right? I mentioned it. Okay, in addition, editorial opinion of the New York Times newspaper and in a book entitled Hot, Flat, and Crowded by Thomas L. Friedman, the very well-known bestseller and Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist of the New York Times, described him as the Noah of the modern history, and Conservation International refers to him as a conservation warrior. So I think he's the best person to talk about this issue, right? And we will learn a lot, I think, by this about the topic of safeguard the next generation of green business by nurturing biodiversity. Of course, we all understand about the climate change, the green business, and everything, but let us learn from this how we can do this by nurturing biodiversity. Okay? Professor, the time is yours, please. Let's give applause to Prof. Jatna.
Thank you very much, Bu Yasmin. Bapak Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending this class. My name is, they should be pronounced Jatna because this Y, it's old vocal Dutch, during the Dutch, so my father, but because of that, so I'm still using Jatna Supriyatna. I'm the professor of conservation biology at Universitas Indonesia, but also the chair of the Research Center for Climate Change. And I just discussed about this climate change last week at the in South Africa during the G20 meeting, inception meeting. So this also very important. So I would like to will little bit changes the topic. I will also edit climate change in it, but mostly on the biodiversities. How do we get this? Okay, so here's the outline. I would like to talk about this. It's about biodiversity richness in Indonesia, and maybe I also little bit of the whole is global, plus biodiversity values, because most of you are economists or related to. I'm not, so although I was in MIT for 1 year at the Sloan School of Management, understanding a little bit economy for 1 year, but that's not enough times for understanding the economy and really hard science and working on the jungle mostly. The third one we're going to be discuss about the biodiversity crisis. The fourth one is the new and green economy. I will not be touched very deep, but just what is really understanding what that's really new green economy. And I would like to touch the last one about the economy opportunity on biodiversity conservation. So let me. Here is my new books. Just launched 2 months ago. It's about the ecotourism, wildlife ecotourism, but unfortunately in Bahasa, I will translate it and publish. I think I'm still negotiating with Springer to publish it in New York. Anyway, so let me tell you about Indonesia. I read a list of the participants from most of you from Yale University, right? And that's really amazing because in 1984 I was in Yale for 2 months studying English, not studying economy. So I'm studying English, but then it's too cold. I don't want to be in New Haven with very cold. So I moved to New Mexico with warm, with more diverse people, and so on and so on and so on. Just like you, everybody here now is very diverse. I like that because, I was there for 3 months and understanding English, and it's not so good at the time. So New Mexico is really good because I can learn Spanish. Anyway, so let me introduce what Indonesia. Right? Here is Indonesia. I talked at the discussion in South Africa, in Pretoria. I said, you are continental people. America, India, all these people are continental. Indonesian is archipelagic people. What does really means? It means that we are subject to very small islands which border with the sea, not border with land. You go from here, Java, for example. When you go to many other different islands, we have more than 13,000 islands. Nobody, no other country has that kind, except maybe Philippines. Philippines about 7,000 islands, and the closest one is Philippines. So Indonesia, basically, we have 13 to 17,000 islands. It's really depend on where you see it. When you see from the top of the mountains, maybe at 13,000. When you go more deeper to see Indonesia in the ocean, because there's so many under the ocean, island under the ocean. It's only 1 meter under the ocean. There's so many. So that's about 17,000. So, but at the same time, we have 129 volcanoes. I don't see in India has volcanoes. I don't see in Singapore has volcanoes, right? Korea also don't have that. US, yes. Of course, in the Pacific Rims, like in Seattle and Oregon and others, those have volcanoes. Why is it volcano is so many? Because this is the recording. Geologically, Indonesia is between Asia and Australia. What does it mean for economy? I'll tell you. But let me introduce what the volcano. Volcano, when in Java, for example, here, you are staying in Java, there is a 30 volcanoes. 30. Yeah? It's a lot. You can hear every year blow up in everywhere in Indonesia. And it's catastrophic as economic. Also, that's really a burden for government, right? Because those here is in Sumatra, here is in Java. You can see that there's so many, right? I have to use this one. What kind of stupid? Yes. Oh, here I have to be in the middle. How can we do this? Okay. So, as you can see here, whole thing is about the volcanoes. Bali even, so sometimes, airport disrupted. Right? You cannot even landing in the airport because of this eruption. So that's really the volcanoes. But at the same time, we have opportunity to have geothermal. If you have money in Indonesia, we can develop this geothermal to have clean energy. We can light up all the Asia. The only thing that we need economists who can really think that this is really good, right? Compared to coal and other things. Okay. The right side, I can see that here. Why is it red and green? What does it really mean? This is what you call it the earthquake, right? We have 2,000 almost every year earthquake in Indonesia. It's never happened in Singapore. Never happened in Korea. Some in US, maybe in India a little bit, but not like this. That's why development, you cannot too much depend on this, right? Means that if you have to learn about this, I think that's really what we have to do. Understanding what is really the red one. This red one is about 5 scale Richter, which means really Yogyakarta. Say from Ugam, right? You're from Ugam? Oh, Ugam, Jakarta. All right. Not Gajah Mada. Gajah Mada is really Yogyakarta. Every 5 years, they blew up. almost every 5 years, blew up. And catastrophic, many people die because of that. But this is really the important, beside, of course, going to be disaster, but at the same time, opportunities. You just go to here in Jakarta, you see that the geothermal, 2 hours by car, if you want to see it, how Indonesia use this. It's only 2 countries has one, New Zealand and Indonesia has geothermal, which is in the future, I think we'll have more and more geothermal. There's so many handicap on tariff and many other things. But I believe that this will be. Here is what they have: coast prone to sea level rise. What does it really mean? If 2050 sea level rise about 1 meters, about 2,000 islands of Indonesia will be inundated, will be disappeared. What does it really mean for the economy? Because there's so many low-lying islands in Indonesia. And that's really important to see. And what does it really also mean? Tsunami. Have you know that 20 years ago, is it 20 years ago? Right? 10 years or 20 years? 20 years ago, there is a big tsunami where up to India, Africa, Madagascar. It's really big, with about so big, I think it's the first time they killed 250,000 people dying because of tsunami. That's coming from Indonesia. Here is from Aceh. There's potential also from Indian Ocean. And that's really, we have to predict. And that's really now, the Geological Institute in Bandung, they are predicting, right, the possibilities of the southern part of Indonesia. The next slide is what you call it the central of Indonesia, where we have flow the water from Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. What does it really mean? I'll tell you later. This is the flow where the cold sea and the warm sea is blending. And the food flow from the ocean will make that very rich biodiversities. And that's really, you can see here. Let me tell you about Indonesia further. If you go flying from here, right, from Aceh to Papua, 8-hour flying times. US between Los Angeles to New York is about 5 hours time. So means that from the western part of Indonesia to the eastern part of Indonesia, it's 8 hours, 3 more hours than US. So 3 time zone, same with the US, but also we have 108,000 kilometers of that coastline. So if you see this, the business of Indonesia, you can see here how that really the 58% of the world trade pass through the water of Indonesia. What does it really mean? It's so important, right? And then in terms of that values, about $435 billion every year. That business. Because many of those business from China, from Japan, of course, they have to go to Malaya Strait, Sumatra, Indonesia, and go to Europe. That's a business, right? And that's really important. In terms of the mining, 50% of the nickel reserve is in Indonesia. 50%. What does it really mean? For EV, electronic vehicles, where now is China and Korea and US, they use this one. Plus, of course, the coal, number 3 producer, plus tin and gold, and many other things. As a nature resource management things, basically Indonesia is so rich. Why is so poor? That's really question, when you were like me and professor at the university and all these things. Why? We have so rich. You can so mining, whatever, But why is the people here is still poor? Now it's middle class, of course. But that's really not enough. We thought that we have to be more because we have so much natural resources. Well, I'll tell you later. Okay, so I think that's a thing, as a geothermal potential, hydro, solar, wind, ocean, the energy basically for climate change. During this crisis of climate change, I think we have really ready, Indonesia. But the problem is, as I mentioned, it's not easy. Okay. Next. All right. Here is Indonesia is 1.3% of the Earth land surface because we have more ocean than island. I mean the surface, the terrestrial. But they have 10% of the world flowering species. We have 12% of the world mammal species. Mammal means like us, like us, and 15% of the insects. And the good thing about this, about 25% of the fish species. 1/4 of the fish is Indonesia. The problem is that we don't use that. Why is it? I'll tell you later. Because the fish we eat in Indonesia, like tilapia, coming from Africa. Right? Ikan mas, which is a cyprin, or gold, whatever the fish they call, coming from China. So what that really Indonesian eat? Why we eat? We are sitting in the very rich fish, 25%, but we don't eat that species. Why is it? Because domesticated all these animals coming from others. We are not really good in domesticating the species. Right? That's really the problem. So, the possible things also is about Indonesia, what you call it, 600 species of the reef corals out of the 800 globally, which means that more than 2/3 of the coral reef in the world is in Indonesia. So the problem is that although we have so much, so rich, but we are not using this. Not yet. Not yet means that expertise is not there. Why is it? Because the government budget for research is 0.008. Can you imagine? Korea is almost 4%. Singapore, Malaysia, almost 1%. They don't care about the research. That's why we are all these things the problem, because we don't use these resources. Because of that, I think if you are becoming president, I hope that some of this, you becoming president, and use this. Coral Reef is very rich. You can see, you dive there. In my book, I said, who is the beneficiaries of the coral reef? Australia. The Great Barrier Reef. There's so much. They get $2.5 billion from that tourism diving. Not Indonesia. We are the richest. How come? Well, most of those tourist diving sites is foreigner. No one. Not in Indonesia. Where is the biologist? Where is the fisheries guy? Well, they are like to be government employees. They don't want to do research here. So that's really important. And then, I'm working with the NUS in Singapore. They invite them to come to do research. So that's the problem. Okay. What the values? You are economists, most of those. Here's the values. So biological is a very important. Food, shelter, wood, fiber, energy, raw material, industrial chemicals, medicines, all, you name it, all coming from biodiversities. Plus pollination. Sometimes people say, wow, you see that the bees, that's bee. But without bees, agriculture will not happen. It's about $700 billion that's really benefited human beneficiaries because of bees. Now is a lot of scientists trying to whatever possible that bees can survive because of the pesticide. Bees disappear because of the pesticide. While we need bees, right, to make all the flowering, all the agriculture things. And so on and so on. But the thing is that you hear climate modification and balance, drought and flood control. It's all related with the climate change. Nutrient cyclings, right? Whole thing is when the climate change is, of course, they're going to be nutrient cycling and so on and so on. So what you call it? This is the science of Indonesian biodiversity. We just produced 5 years ago. All these scientists in Indonesia together, they developed their books. They call Indonesians Science of Indonesian Biodiversity. You can have in the website. Next slide. Here it is. Biodiversity is a green gold. But in the crisis, what does it really mean? If you see that 150 prescription drug in US is 70% coming from the plants, 18% from the fungi, 5% from bacteria, 3% on the snakes. Even the snakes are very important, right? So that's really biodiversity is for antibacterial, antifungal, antimalarial, herbicide, anti-tumor, immunostimulants, anti-rheumatic, termination of pregnancy, contraceptive, and so on and so on. The value is big. Not only in Indonesia, in US, in many other countries, in India even, right? Because India is already have since 1991, they developed the website, the database on what the people already know about biodiversity use. We don't have that yet in Indonesia. So India more further. China, because of the herbal medicines, they developed that and becoming big business on this thing. So this is really important. Also, we have not utilized the whole plants. We still more to dig our plant in the forest. What the content chemically, physically, and so on and so on. So the next slide will be next slide. Oh, okay. Basically, it's similar, for water and so on and so on. You can read it. That I'm not so, but important that even for this, they call Nepenthes. Nepenthes is bahasa Indonesia is kantong semar. Yeah. Things that are just things. But you know what? There's a chemical. Yeah. They produce chemical to trap the insect. So when the insect come and they got to the, and that insect, that chemical now is very important for medicine. At the time we don't think about that. Well, we think about this is just a plant. But then you know why they can kill the animal, how that the nerve system, and so on and so on. They just learn about that long times. So it's many important for the ecosystem. The next slide. Here is the food. You know, our president, Indonesia president, we need food. We need stabilize. We need 20 million hectares of our forest to be converted into rice field, sugarcane, and many other for food. I'm a scientist. I'm writing. Of course, what scientists can do, you just write. I write in the journal. I thought, 20 million hectares for food. In 1985, something wrong with Indonesia. They tried to get this in Central Kalimantan. They developed 1 million hectares, not 20 million, 1 million. Failures. Why is it failures? They really don't understand what the physical Indonesia is. We are not continental. The soil are different. In Java, because of so many mountains, we are very rich. Fresh from Soviet and many others, the soil becoming the number one, the best number one. But in compared to US, no. Because we thought that Indonesia is very rich. Yes, biodiversity. but not the soil. American soil, layers, the nutritious, they can go up to 20 meters. So when they have eroded, they still very good. Why is that? Because of 4 seasons. Indonesia is only 2 seasons. So that's why our soil is not good. There is a problem in Indonesia. Indonesia fairly rich. Yes, but doesn't mean that soil is good, right? Indonesian soil, if you go to Kalimantan, you try to plant something without fertilizer, nothing. You cannot do it. I went to Africa. Africa much better soil. Tropical soil is not the best for planting agriculture. And that was really the different pomeos. India much better than Indonesian soil. Because we are very thin, less than 1 meter. After that 1 meter, we don't have any nutrition. Why is it? Because when the rain, Indonesian rain is really rain. And they make all this, the nutrition wash away. That's why it is way. So sometimes, the economists really need to know that. Because you are in the very, very narrow. You are economist. Or maybe you are manager or management. But if without understanding the other side, that's really difficult to start. That's why I think if you know how to biological control, for example, food, right? Why do we spend too much pesticide? I really, argue with many others decision makers about this thing, because when you need planting, you need pesticide, you need fertilizer, you need everything. At the end of the day, polluted. Soil is polluted by pesticide, soil polluted by the fertilizer. Not becoming. So that's really the important things. Next slide. I tell you about the chicken. This is story of chicken. Right? Think with your chicken is wild. No, chicken is very important. Where is the chicken coming from? Here is the chicken coming from. Right? A, India. B, China. C, Indonesia. 3 areas of chicken where it's coming from. But those are the white chicken. I mean the brown chicken and white chicken. Look at this one. We have 31 chicken breed exist in Indonesia. But we don't eat those. We eat only white chicken, which it can generate only 30 days, 20 days exactly. You buy this one small chicken, 20 days with the whole, feed it, and plus antibiotic in it, plus hormone, plus everything. So what did you eat? Hormone. But we don't eat this. Why is it? Because we don't have so much money to understand our chicken. Right? 30 different chicken in Indonesia. Maybe I don't know how many in Malaysia, how many in India, could generate it from only 3 species chicken. But the one I'm really hoping, because I'm also a farmer, I have 50,000 chicken in my farm. I know very little about this thing, business. I'm a biologist, but also a businessman. A little. I'm not really good at it. It's a little. But I understand that how that we grew this chicken. 20 days. If you more than 20 days, you lose. You gain. Basically, because you have to feed, but at the same time, the development is very slow. That's why we have that one. Alright, let me tell you the how many of you know about bananas? You know from the supermarket, right? Only supermarket. For example, Lemonade. And what other else, you know? This is coming from one of those. Indonesia has the one that about 300 bananas in one. 300. Here, look at this one. 300. So if you grow that, you become rich. You sell it 300. Not only one, what do you call it? One. So here, yeah? Here, look. What do you eat? Only one varieties. Yeah? What did you eat is only one varieties out of many hundred of them. If you go to Medan, you get difference. You go to Makassar, you have pisang pepe. Yeah. You go to Bogor, you can find many small, sweet, very delicious. But you can get like almost half meters, right? They call pisang tanduk. I let you know why is not we don't have very big plantation of bananas. Why is it? An economist must to know. Why is it? Because the virus, the center of endemism of bananas is in Indonesia. In Africa, I saw that banana is becoming staple food, right? In Nigeria and many other staple food. Huh? Yeah, Somalia and many other countries becoming staple food. But Indonesia, why is not becoming staple food? Because we are so many, so varied. So, from small one, pisang mas, to the big one, pisang raja. I have my graduate student at the time, In Papua, he saw one big bananas, 30 meters high. With that, like almost even bigger than the pisang tanduk. It's so varieties. But do you know how many scientists working in pisang, in bananas? 5. 5 people. Now it's about 3. 2 already died. 3. And I have a friend from Australia, Professor Smith, from Griffith University, came here. He said, Mayana, you know what? we have developed almost 500 hectares of bananas, Indonesian bananas. Is that very good? Why is that in Indonesia? Because we don't have scientists like 3 people, don't have understanding what that means. There should be collaboration between economists and scientists. Otherwise, scientists know what there's really all better, worse, better, and everything, gaps and all. But they don't know how to grow, because that really needs science. So bananas are very important. Unfortunately, that not in the supermarket. You cannot buy in the supermarket. You can buy in the traditional market. Right? Next slide. Sugarcane also. Mangoes. Do you know where is the center of mangoes diversity? Any Indonesian, do you know where is the mangoes diversities in Indonesia? Maybe not, you don't understand that. Why? It's in South Sulawesi. Why is it in South Sulawesi? Because those people, for 100 years, they come to many different, to India, to Australia, to many other, bring that seeds and get the mangoes from outside. And they plant it, because they are the sailors, right? The Bugis people. They call it the boogeyman. That's why the boogeyman. The government coming from the Bugis. The Bugis who travel to all over and becoming frightening everybody's, because the best sailors in the world. And they took all these resources and planted in the South Sulawesi there. And you can see, I have my graduate student who's doing that, how many mangoes species. But unfortunately, where is the best mangoes in the world? Egypt. Why is it Egypt? Because our President Sukarno gave it to them, to President Gamal Abdul Nasser. This is the best. Well, we don't need, because we have so many, plenty. Give it to them. And Egypt developed that, becoming the best. You go to Egypt, along the Niles, there's so many mango trees. And that was really the first. There's so many, a problem with this Indonesia. We have so many mangoes, but then we don't use it, because every household in Indonesia has mango trees. They don't need the mango tree. You just sell it and you eat it, from your backyard, right? That's really important. Okay, here's to the fact 400 species of vegetables supply vitamin and mineral and 70 species of food. I'm the guy from the West Java. We eat herbs every day. When I was in my high school times, my mother always go to a traditional market and buy many different. I can eat 5 different species of vegetable. When you go to Jakarta, nothing. It's only all these vegetables coming from market, supermarket, and so on and so on. So that's really difficult. Where is the 400 more? I think there's really an opportunity for us to sell, all these species in the forest. You can utilize, and the opportunity for you to go beyond that one. So we have so many species. Sago. Have you heard the sago? Sago. Have you heard sago? One sago tree, right, can enough for 5 people for a year. So If you go, we have more than almost 500,000 hectares sagu in Papua. If you time that, which means that we have 5 million easily supply, not rice, right? We are eating rice too much. We need to go eating sagu. Maybe in the future, we eating sagu instead of rice, because this is very nice. So anyway, next slide. Here's the market values. I think you guys like to see the dollar sign. I don't like it because it's a little bit, how many dollars pharmacy from biotech? It's about 640 billion. All the way, biotechnology. Now, so of course, the biotech is becoming more and more, beside AI and so on and so on. But you see now the business of the seeds is very important. Many companies right now, agriculture company, they're selling the seeds. And that seeds, you cannot duplicate. It's only one shot, right? You buy the seeds, corn or whatever, using GMO, right? Genetic modifying organism, so that the possibilities is only one planted. After that, it's not worth it to be planted. So that's really important. That's why the seed is becoming more and more, and the biotechnology is becoming more and more. But the other thing is also so many products. Next slide. Here's the valuation. Oops, sorry. Here is again the valuation about biodiversity and ecosystem services. I think that the pharmaceutical, the genetic resources, agriculture is very important for the future. But the other things, what's happened? Okay. Have you seen this? Coral reef is so beautiful, right? But people think that business is always how to use or utilize the resources. But don't you think that there is any other side of the business, not only utilization, but also seeing as a tourism, a big tourism. Like I was in South Africa last week. I was safari, at Kruger National Parks. You know how much at Kruger? They receive almost 1 million people. How much money they earn for that biodiversity? So big, so depend on that one. South Africa, they know, they sell the opportunity to tourism, that biodiversity. In Korea, Jeju Islands, right? They are all these biodiversities related. In Japan, similar things. In US, you go to many national parks. Only in Indonesia, they don't have any revenue base from tourism. How do we develop this national park? Because when you go to Indonesia, it's only $1 fee. While I was in Kruger, you have to pay $50 plus $50 plus. Indonesia, it's only $1. We don't appreciate. Why is it? Because economy is not there. There's no good management on how this national park earn the money. I think that's the problem with this. You see the orangutan hills? In my book, I studied this. You see the orangutans only $50. Yeah? Fee to go to this one. If you go to Congo, Rwanda, Uganda, the three countries. A few years ago I went there, paying $700. Gorillas, mountain gorillas. That's big money. Why is Indonesia only charged $50? Malaysia offering $150 to see the orangutan. Indonesia offering $50. Well, I said we will not compete on that. Why is it? Because the problem is that we just not so much scientists who can explain this orangutan. Most of those orangutan scientists are coming from Netherlands, US, and many other countries. So this is the problem. Next. Here is it. Nature tourism is about $180 billion. It's a big money, right? Wildlife tourism is about $120 billion. In US, it's about $41 billion. It's a big money. But here is me in the Kruger National Park, and plus right now that Indonesia is only 280 trillion. I don't know how much that for dollars. We have to calculate. But even less, but Indonesia is a potential so big. But what does it really mean with the carbon? Carbon credit and so on. So I'll tell you about this later. What's happened? Can you next? Here's the Komodo. Have you heard Komodo? Most of them, of course, have you seen it, Komodo? Oh wow, that's good. So I studied these Komodos a few years ago with the economists, combining economies, mines, and others, trying to understand how much money they earn. This is the total, the economic valuation of the Komodos. I'm sorry it's in rupiah, but it's a very big, right? What does it really mean is that Komodo is the only animal in Indonesia. They are, a vang has poisons. It's the biggest reptiles in the world. You can see that is, of course, frightening, but everybody likes to see it. And that's why I think becoming more and more people, you go to Komodo Island, Labuan Bajo, and then you can see it. Now the price still very cheap to see this, but I think that the revenue is still. But I believe that this is the future. When the climate change impact 2030, the Komodo may be gone. Everybody will say, oh, no, come on. Please. This is the prediction. Why is it? By 2050, by 2050, Komodo is so dependent on the trees. Small Komodo, they go up to the trees. Otherwise, they eat it by the adult. They are scavengers. They know as the kids, or they eat it So that's why the balance of Komodo is not so much. It's about 2,000. Now decreasing, decreasing, decreasing. The climate change making the trees go dead, and there is no others. Komodo is going to disappear. Indonesia, I was telling the government, you need to restore the ecosystem now. Changes. Trying to get the possibilities of those. Anticipate it, because 30 more years, if you don't action, sea level rise, most of the Comoros are really at the low level, except in some mountains, but that's not enough. That's why I think if you don't starting now to understand all the one that in the landscape area, that's going to be very difficult to understand. Next slide. Oh, yes. Yeah. Here's the impact of the Komodos. Yeah. Sorry in Bahasa, but Komodo tourism trying to get extinction. Here is wildlife tourism in protected areas. As I mentioned before, there's so many visitors, but at the same time, the price is not really developed, because what we need is the economists who really need to calculate. Economists like me, as long as they can survive. But how the economists can calculate that? What we need is, they call the bioeconomy. It's very important to have that bioeconomy. Next slide. Here is it. 3 big orangutans. We do have 3 big species orangutan. 2 in Sumatra, in Aceh and North Sumatra, and 1 in Kalimantan. I wrote the books on ecotourism and Indonesian primate together with a friend of mine. It's really important, right? We have gorilla, we have many others. But those 3 species, especially in the middle, is only 800 left in the jungle. 800 left. Even in Africa, for example, the mountain gorilla, they're still 2,000 left. They're still safe compared to this Sumatra Tapanuli orangutan. So, next slide. Here is the orangutan. We have 6 areas for ecotourism with the price of about $50 each. Right? Next slide. Can we rely on orangutans? No, of course. But the tourism has to be really understand why is the economic activities important for community there, but also to save the orangutan in the areas. Next slide. Here is gorilla tourism, about 500 to 700. Next slide. Here is the bird watching. Have anybody seen the bird? Sometimes think, oh, bird. Why is he seeing the bird? It's a very important bird. They are most of those UK people, British. 1/3 of the British are the bird watcher. How many million people are going to Indonesia only to see the bird? The bird of paradise, Cendrawasih, and so on and so on. That is really a big business, about $800 billion of this business. And this business, basically, Who is it? I have my professor at the time come to Indonesia just to see the bird. I said, please, please stop by in my house. No, I said. He said, I want to go to Papua. Why? You want to see the bird of paradise. Come on. Many $1,000 just need to see the bird of paradise. Next slide. Here is also national parks of Indonesia that I wrote the books for with a friend of mine. It was just important that Indonesia is a cost center. National park in Indonesia is a cost center. While in US, Yosemite National Parks, Yellowstone National Park, all is about million people come. And they are very good. Because what? Many Americans like to buy national park card. A card that can go to national park anytime. The price is about $80. How much to go to Indonesia National Park? They don't use this economy as an instrument for making these national parks. You go to Singapore, small national park there, but they have to pay. Of course, everywhere. That's really the problem with tourism in Indonesia. Next slide. So, there's a triple crisis, right? The climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. This is the IPCC, and my center is always, and I'm always come to this IPCC meeting. The last one is in Baku, Azerbaijan, last year, and we have so many possible that the impact of the climate change to our society, to the economy, to many others. Next slide. Here is the Sumatra. We lost biodiversity a lot. You see that in 1950, and right now it's only in the middle forest. We lost $1 billion for this one. Of course, we can see that. Next slide. Oh. Here is that Indonesia is palm oil. Palm oil is coming from Africa, West Africa. But because of not so many enemy, pests, and so on, grew up in Indonesia in the best possible way, right? And making the economy. And that's really 17 million hectares, 1/2 of Java Island planted by oil palm. That's too many. Is it good economy? Yes. But good socially? No. Environmentally? No. Right? Because the release of the emission from the converting this forest into this one is really bad. Next slide. For the animal, 80% of the animal gone because of this hunted and unhunted and many other things. Next slide. And that's the problematic, what you call it, the COVID-19. What is the COVID-19? Basically this. When we deforestate areas, the bats and all the reservoir of the virus come too close to human. And that's why you can see here from this one, here good forest, right, that stabilize the virus, bad forest that mix that human and our domestic animal with the virus from the bat. That's COVID-19. That's many other Zika, and all this MERS and many other viruses. 1,000 million viruses. So this is the possibilities. Because we are eating something like this, the bat, right? In Sulawesi, mostly zoonotic, going to be the coffin. It costs $1 billion of the coffin, and million people die because of that coffin too. So important to understand biodiversity in the future. Next slide. All right, this is the climate change. What that's really climate change? Because you guys going to be, unfortunately, rice field is releasing methane. The methane is 3 times of CO2, which is the impact to the climate change. Indonesia is maybe number 4, number 5 of the polluters of the climate change, right? Because of what? Because we're converting the forest, but at the same time we also developing this rice field and also the peatland areas. That's really the important. Ocean, impact of the climate change into the ocean too. Here is the problem, right? Mangrove, seagrass, and coral reef basically is a money-wise making for the future because they can observe the CO2, right? So if we do this, then we get really good thing. But at the same time, we also making the problem for this one. Next slide. With the climate change, I think that you can see here some of the island in Indonesia will be gone because of the sea level rise. And the problem also in Australia, here is right now is already the Great Barrier Reef is already bleaching. All the coral is bleached, becoming white. And about 70 million people in Indonesia by 2050, it will be hard to find fish. Why is it? Because the coral is the nurseries, the bank of the fish. So if the bank, basically you rob the bank, you finish. Similarly, when you're trying to do this one, because what? Because when the surface water more than 2 degrees or 3 degrees, the zooxanthellae is in the coral reef, they basically release. And that's why they becoming difficult and die. Plus ocean acidification because of we are throwing all the garbage into the ocean. Indonesia will be impacted a lot. Also many other countries like Singapore and many others. That's going to be difficult for this. Plus so many tropical cyclone right now, for example, Brisbane and many others. So tropical cyclone is more frequent because of than used to be. Next slide. Well, we thought that if you were in MIT, this is what they said about the green economies. Of course, economy of 0.0 is traditional economy, 1.0 is regulation and hierarchy, free market economy, 3.0 social economy, social market, then now is a deep innovation. I think this is really true. I'm reading. I'm not expert, but I'm reading. You know, like Otto Schamers and many others from MIT. I read all this, how that really world is going to shape with the green economy. Next slide. How is really business and biodiversity related? I do believe that this is really how the output, the input and the output. The very important now is that output. Of course, the input is very important, but the output also, because of the chemicals, pollution, because of many other things that's different from maybe 50 years ago. So that's the impact to the biodiversity. But the possibilities of green product trying to get release this oxygen and so on, be captured and so on. So the next slide, I think this is my last slide. No? Okay, new business opportunity on forestry. We have to call it carbon trade. Have you ever know the carbon trade? Carbon trade is important when you keep this forest intake and so on and so on. While we also very important here is how one of those 2015, for example, that the forest can really absorb up to 296 gigatons. Indonesia is also committed to reduce this emission with this, and hopefully by the process that we can have carbon credit in the next future. Next slide. Sometimes I just wonder why is reforestation is very important, because we hope that we have almost 20 million hectares, as I mentioned before. The president wants to have 20 million for food. I thought reforestation is the key. You see how much that one tree trunk can produce 1,000 to 200,000 liters of water. We so depend on water. 70% of our body is water. We need water. But during the climate change 2050 to 2100, it's going to be difficult. 300 degrees more is going to be human difficulties. 4 degrees, I think, is almost world is polluted by CO2. 5 degrees more, we are going to be disappear. All human life. So 2 degrees, that's why the word IPCC said no more than 2 degrees. But now we already 1.5. It might be in the future, in 2030 is already 2 degrees. Maybe, I don't know. That's why if you don't keep that, the climate change, that's going to be. But at the same time, this is in China, we can develop this bad land becoming fertile. Why is the technology is there? We need to have so many land in Africa. We can develop that becoming food. Not in Indonesia. Indonesia is marine land, not land, marine. We develop those, not land, because we don't have too many. But of course, in part of the eastern Indonesia, there is so many bad land. We can use the Chinese model. They can do it. In the bad, really don't have any nutrients, they can do it. Technology is there. Next slide. So, there's so many learning from Costa Rica, from Thailand, that now is a changes. The world changes. We need to have reforestation because forest is already gone almost. Next slide. Here is how that the REDD reduce emission from deforestation and degradation. The price of CO2 right now is about $5 to $10. 1 hectare of the tropical forest is about 250 to 300. Times $10 is about $3,000 per hectare. How much is the net present values of oil palm? It's about 6,000. So, if you compare oil palms and forest, of course oil palm is profitable. But that's in the long run, because of the oil palm, they take water 12 liters per day, and by the time 30 years, one cycle, the soil is gone. You have really difficulties by then. You need to restore, after the second or the third generation of the palm oil. And that's really the bomb, the time bomb for us, for Indonesia, with 17 million hectares. Right now, I think what we need is to understand how this carbon thinks. What we need is not only biodiversity specialists, but the economists who can calculate how much that's really, if you have carbon in the market about $30 to $50. Then all this oil palm disappear. It's going to change with the forest, because the price of the forest carbon is going to be double and triple. Next slide. How we produce the carbon, I don't think that is a standard, international standard, Switzerland, US, and so on and so on. Next slide. I think this is Indonesia regulation. The carbon is already done, but the problem, what's happened? The president, the minister changes, they don't understand that. The new regulation coming again. I think it's just like cycle. Next slide. This is the last one, is plastic pollution, and more and more. Okay. Next slide. This pollution also is becoming more and more. Next slide. I think what that really the result. Research is very needed. And I think the last one, how is the collaboration between the academics, the government, and the business rules. So this is really my last slide about how do we, in the futures, about possible collaboration between the academics and the government and also the business. I think that's really my last slide. Thank you very much.
Wow, it's very interesting, Professor. Well, actually, as a business student, we learn about triple bottom line, right? People, profit, planet. But I think we don't know how big is the part of the planet that we have to handle in balancing with the profit. And I think biodiversity can be a very strategic resource for a country, and we need knowledge and economic and management to not only to utilize and make a revenue from it, but how we can preserve it, right? To make it into a very sustainable in the long run. And at first we have to understand the biodiversity itself, right, Professor, the planet side from it, and how we can utilize it strategically, of course, with that still think of it as a very long-term resource, because not every natural resource can be replaced, right? Sometimes once we use it, then we lose it. Okay, I will open up a Q&A session. Anyone would like to ask a question or make a comment to Professor? Yes, 1, 2, 3. Okay, anyone can help me with the mic? One over here. Yes, please tell us your name and your school first before the question. Ken? Philip? Oh, you're already here? Okay, let's move to this one first. Okay, please, while you're handling the technical. Yes, please, your name and school.
Hi, Professor. Thank you for coming to speak with us. My name is Isabella, and I'm from Yale University. You mentioned comparing the different tourism entry fees in different countries. You mentioned Indonesia, the equivalent of maybe $50 US, and Rwanda upwards of $700. What do you think is needed for Indonesian ecotourism to increase its prices in a way that better reflects the value of biodiversity? Do we need more organizations like BOSF in Kalimantan? Do we just need more, I guess, increased offerings or provisions? Like, what do you think is needed to make sure that the pricing is, matches, the true value of biodiversity?
Okay, I think the important thing is that the tourists should be satisfied with the explanation, should be understand what that really means for the values. When they can come, of course, the value is very important. In case of when I visited gorilla in Congo at the times, we have like a reservation of 6 months to see it. So they limited means that becoming more and more want to see. While in us trying to get more, the tourists, we don't have any limitation. That's why the price is not so much. First, second one is also promotion. Of course, a very weak promotion by itself. Gorilla, names gorilla, it's very important because it's numbers only 2,000 in mountain gorillas cases. Plus with the many things, right? They offering limited. The numbers is like for one, it's about 20. So they are very limited. The supply and demand is very important. And supply is already limited, like tourism like that, in only 3 sites for mountain gorillas. While in orangutan sites, we have in Malaysian side, we have 5 in Malaysia and 6 in Indonesia. So the price is going up and down. Why is Malaysia is higher? Tourist interpreter is much better than us. I have been in Malaysia many times. I have been in Indonesia many times. That's not equal. The pricing is very important. And that's really the need for economists to understand that. I'm a biologist. I'm trying and really hard to understand why is it so many people satisfied when you see the orangutans. And then if you compare that in Indonesia, those of 6, one is managed by Indonesian, one is managed by foreigners. You can see the differences. It's not because I'm trying to see that the foreigner and Indonesian are different. Because understanding of the animal. How do you interpret this subject of tourism? Interpretation is number 1. For example, why is the orangutan eating this? Why is that orangutan live in solitaire compared to chimpanzee, for example? Those explanations, its curiosities of people, the tourism, is very important. So I think that answer. And we don't have any economists who working in these areas. It's not so many. I have been in many parts of the world, Madagascar, example of that. It's still very poor. And we all these economists understand the numbers. But of course, collaboration, as I mentioned before, is a very important. How do we calculate it? For example, Komodo. when the government suddenly, oh, we need to increase the price because they see it, or to gorilla tourism about 5 to 700, while Komodo is only $40 to $50. And then suddenly the government said, okay, now it's about $200. What that really means? Cannot be government, has to be study supply and chain. Supply and demand, how many people is going to be? And that's really economic and principle to understand this. And that's why Komodo is, and the government price becoming 200, nobody want to do it. Because there is no study, right? When we develop study and we gave it to the governor there, we give it to the minister, look, what you have to do is this one. And unfortunately, I have the economists working with me to understand how much values and so on and so on. So that's the answer. Thank you very much.
Prof. Yatna, perhaps I can add some. Well, actually, it's also about the infrastructure, right? If we compare, basically, we have the raw material, but you understand about the business, right? If you want to sell this product or services, it's not only about the raw material, but how you package this product and how you promote it, and the services complement with this product. So basically, we have this raw material as a product, but how we package this, the infrastructure, all the facilities around it, and like you said, perhaps the tourist guide, right? Who can explain everything, how we increase the value of this basic product. I think that's the important that we have to increase the quality of our tourism here, actually. So if you compare, if you have a chance to go to like Labuan Bajo to see the Komodo or other area in Indonesia, you can compare with this kind of facilities, infrastructure, how do I have to pay this amount of money, right? So you can compare those. I think this is some of the weakness, right, Professor?
Yeah, but also the length of stay. Because if you have only Komodo, people when there's only one time shot, then after that, what? What next? There has to be destination, more destination. 2 or 3 or 5 so that people can stay longer. Infrastructure better when the tourists can stay in very convenient way. So that's really so many factors for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The second question, yes, please.
Hi, I'm Chitra from Gajah Mada University, Yogyakarta. Thank you for the opportunity, and also thank you, Prof. Yatna, for the insightful presentation. I have interest in your presentation about nature ecotourism. Actually, I have 2 questions, but I think we just only have limited time, so I just ask one. So earlier this year, in January, I visited Belitung and was amazed by its natural attraction. They have pretty rich in biodiversity, from the underwear beauty to the primates that they have tarsius in there. However, I noticed that maybe like many underrated tourism across the region in Indonesia, that there weren't as many foreign tourists compared to places like Bali, which is currently facing issues of over-tourism. So my question is, what strategies can we do, or maybe Indonesia do, to implement or create a balanced framework that promotes sustainable tourism across all regions, so that we can ensure in economic growth, environmental conservation, and local community wellness?
Oh yeah, that's really big question. To resolve that, really, I mean, you see the Belitung, of course, is one of the very beautiful areas. I'm a member of the Government Sustainable Tourism Council, and we've been discussing this. How do we develop this destination? Indonesia is very rich, but everything is Bali. Bali, we sell Bali all too much, so for tourism in Bali, so that's really bad. But you see that Bali and Singapore, for example, Singapore is much. Of course, what they sell is the cities, all these things. But Bali, of course, same thing also. We have selling most of the nature. 30% of the Indonesian are related to nature tourism. And most of those are really related to the culture. And of course, that's really. So how do we go from here? Basically, government is already planned for 5 more Balis. They call 5 more Balis. Because everybody knows Bali is not everybody knows. For example, Sulawesi, right? The islands where Bunaken, right? Bunaken, and many others. Borobudur, for example, the culture, you know everybody Borobudur in central Java. So I think destination is the most important. How do we develop destination? They need to have a grid of collaboration between the tourism is really depend on they call the multi and transdiscipline research. So understand how do we develop this destination site. Sometimes destination is, of course, has been there for quite a long time, or maybe the other one is to create it destination. Papua, of course, is very beautiful. Raja Ampat is number 1. If you have been in Raja Ampat, you dive there. No other places in the earth can compare to Raja Ampat. I have been most of those areas in Australia, Philippines, and of course many others. But Raja Ampat is the best because you can get 600 coral reef species out of 800 all over the world. So, you know it better. But Raja Ampat, why is it not so much developed as like Bali? It's because of the security problem, transportation, infrastructure, and many other problems. Plus, how many people are in the ecotourism business? I said it's not so many. That's a problem. I think Indonesian not having brave enough to go beyond. That's why many of the site manager, site owners, destination owners, most of them is foreigners. What we need is ourselves to be own that property and so on and so on.
Yeah. I think it's about destination management, yeah, right, Professor? Tourism management. And this is very unique with Indonesia. It's not only about the country level, but we have local government who has some authority with this destination. So I think it's involving like a country level, local government level, community level, right, Professor? Community level, and also corporate level. So it's how we can package and again promote this other than only Bali, right? I think we have 10 destination, right, in Indonesia actually that will be promoted. 20 tourist destination that will already promoted by the government, and we have the state-owned enterprise InJourney. I think InJourney is responsible for promoting this tourism area in Indonesia. Okay, the last one, yes, please.
Hello, Professor. Thank you for the informative presentation. I'm Shan from University of British Columbia, Canada. You have shown us how rich is Indonesia in terms of natural resources, which is largely untapped, right? And one of the problems you mentioned is the lack of budget, which is 0.008%, right? And you also show the comparison with other countries, like if you allocate more budget, like how much you can get in return. So if you have to mention 2 or 3 reasons, the top reasons, what is stopping the government? Because they should have all these facts as well, right? Like, what is stopping them in pushing that budget a little bit so that we can get so much in return, right?
Well, I have to compare all the president of Indonesia. We have experienced
It's okay, Professor. It's only in this room. It's okay.
We are coming from Professor Habibie, becoming the president. He's a top scientist in the world who is a specialist on the plane and all this aeronautical. He's put it on almost bigger number of the research. And everything is good, we developed it's a plane. Even not a car, it's a plane. So basically, it's able to do it, as long as budget there. But when the president has a political to a different, I think like Trump right now. So it's a difference, Research is a very important, maybe in the campus themselves. But how that research becoming the applied research that really impactful. I think University of Indonesia impactful and resourceful. It's important. So I think that's really depend on political will. Change government, change priorities, and so on and so on. So I'm hoping, with a small budget, we can do, as long as that. I do believe that business is more important than the government side, because government is regulators. The business that can really important to put the money in for doing research. So that's really I have so many research funded by foundation and business. Don't have any government money because it's so rigid. Procurement is very difficult. Everything's only 1 year because they worry about the other year. So it's not worth it to have that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's more with the external factor, right? Political, and yeah, we understand the background of the leader will determine the correction and the vision of the company. So I think it's similar with the country, right? Okay, any other questions? Yes. Hello.
Hello, Professor. Thank you so much for taking us all around Indonesia with those beautiful pictures. Thank you so much. So my question is, can you tell us a little bit about the strategy to... my name is Tatamo from University of Indonesia. I'm actually from Maxi, not from MM. Yeah. So can you tell us about the Indonesian strategy? How do you preserve or protect the fauna, the endemic fauna and floras from those external threats such as marine exploitation or exploitation? Thank you so much. I'm actually from Madagascar, so this is one of the biggest problems we face right now. So I would like to know whether there is any strategy that we can also take to save our animals in Madagascar. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I've been 3 times in Madagascar.
Wow.
I've been a friend of mine, and in fact, that friend of mine, I'm going to be in Madagascar in September, October. They're going to be meeting there. But the difference between Madagascar and Indonesia is government heavy. Madagascar is public heavy. What are the differences? Because in Madagascar, the national parks has director under Minister of Water and so on, but it's really autonomous. so they can develop anything. Indonesia is heavy government. It used to be when the Dutch, Indonesian Dutch at the time, 1945, all the resources is a public domain. So national park and so on and so on is not government managed, but it's a public. But now it changes the rules, becoming government. And the budget for national park is only $4 per hectare. That's why it's very difficult. Malaysia is already $20 and US about $80 per hectare. And that really means a lot when you're trying to conserve. Otherwise, we need to have a public, or maybe trying to privatize the national parks. Otherwise, if you have the government, it's a limited budget. They don't have money to have like 20, 30 million hectares right now. So otherwise, they have to change. But now the idea is now is trying to develop the trust fund for the government, which is the trust fund to help this national park and so on and so on. There's a good, there's a new development. Brazil and many other tropical countries, now we develop what we call TFFF, Tropical Forest Forever Facilities, trying to get $125 billion trust fund to get that kind of related to the business of the parks and so on and so on, to conserve and so on and so on. So the global movement is towards positive. I think the problem with Indonesia, I think they still working on the people eating something.
Basic needs, Professor. So basically, from your answer, all over the world globally, managing these issues is, we cannot only rely on the government sector, is it? So it should be also part of the private.
Private has to be taking the big role. Government is regulated, because otherwise, too much money is spent by government to have the security or a team to secure the parks. Like big park, one of the big park like 1 million hectares in Sumatra, it's very difficult. Becoming so many encroachment because not so many park ranger can be hired. And that's the problem. I think the Madagascar model is a public owners, which means that they elected the directors, the privatized and so on. It's easier. America, basically, they call it a profit center. National park is profit, not cost center. Indonesia is still cost center. It's very difficult.
Okay, thank you. Okay, one last question, short one, please.
Okay, thank you, Professor. I think I like this presentation very much. Actually, I'm very surprised that Indonesia has so many different fruits, tropical fruits. But actually, I'm from China, Renmin University. So actually in China, I don't know. There's so many fruits from Indonesia. So because we know many fruits from Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, even like New Zealand, because they have maybe one very famous fruits. Like New Zealand, they have kiwi fruit. Like in Vietnam, they have the dragon fruit, and also maybe mangosteen or some banana from Philippines, very famous in China. But actually, I don't know which one is the most famous in worldwide for the tropical made in Indonesia. I think this is I think maybe we should discuss about thinking about our strategies about the fruits. Maybe it's better to focus in one or two fruit to make it bigger value to the worldwide, very famous, very good quality. And this is my first comments. And this I'm wondering about this. I cannot understand this. Yeah. So I think, and another one is that actually just a few months ago I attended a meeting about the technology about the phytosanitary, because the international trade market we need to use the phytosanitary method to kill the insects. So, but actually there are no Indonesia guys to attend the meeting, but there's so many guys from Malaysia, Thailand, Australia, New Zealand, Vietnam. So I think we need more technology on this, not only the plant the fruits, but also maybe we need to focus on the technology for the international trading. So do you have any idea and about my question or my wondering about this? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I gave an example. Durian. Have you heard durian? Yep.
In Malaysia.
Yes, in Malaysia.
You should try in Indonesian durian.
You know, durian we have in Borneo, we have 600 different varieties of durian. 600. And we are giving to Thailand, giving to Malaysia, giving to many others. And fortunately, they developed it. Simply like mangoes. The president very proud to give the mangoes to Gamal Abdul Nasser. We proud to give it to Malaysia, all these things. Thailand, because the king of the Thailand at the time is a biologist. He was really trying to keep that. I understand that because I knew we have 600 varieties of that. And becoming all the best durian in Thailand and Malaysia. Not in Indonesia. Unfortunately, right? Why is that? Because we need to have working collaboration. How do you develop this demand product? We use, of course, there's so many durian, Indonesian durian from A to Z. From really bad to the best one. But the problem is that the government now is, we used to have the Institute for Working on the Tropical Fruit, but they abolished by the government, becoming BRIN. Becoming research innovation agencies. It's not really specified. And the result is a paper-based, Scopus, and those things. It's not really related to product. That's why now we need to have a private institute, research private institute, really private, instead of government. Thank you.
Okay. I think if we are talking, you're learning about strategic management, right? It's about the product and how you promote it. It's about brand management and everything. So I think in our case, we need strategic management at the country level. Yeah, we have the raw material, the raw product and everything, but we cannot utilize the marketing function at the country level. So I think that's the strategic issues in Indonesia. Okay, everyone, thank you for the interesting question. Again, thank you, Prof. Yatna. Let's give a very big applause for Prof. Yatna. Very interesting issues. And I think this is the end of our session. It's a very interesting, and I think we can learn that natural resources in every country, we have that in variety level, but this is a very strategic resource, and how we can utilize this resource is very important, not only to make it as a business commercialization, but how we can preserve all this natural resource for our human being for the future, for sustainability. And basically, we already learned about triple bottom line, people, profit, planet, and how we can balance that and implement that issues in our days.